with it. And so keep that in mind when doing whatever kind of limits you're dealing with, whether it's for personal use or growing or distribution. I keep telling them too, you know, I can have the greatest dispensaries in the world, but if somebody who is not a patient is coming in and gets some medicine and leaves, you know, you got to end up in cuffs, because we have this 2B here in our section. You don't get protection on either the exemption or the affirmative defense, you know, if it's going to a non-medical patient. Now, in terms of how much is allowed, you know, again, beat you over the head with the information. If you want the exemption, you have to have all this fun stuff with really crummy limits, but that is the exemption. If you want the affirmative defense, that's where we get into medically necessary to address the patient's debilitating medical condition. So you can have whatever that amount is. Now, we have a slightly more kinder, gentler Attorney General's office. I know Brian Vincente might beg to differ back there in regard to the 5-patient limit. But they've been willing to sit down and talk about this stuff. And about a year ago, they recommended to start actually having the doctor. I know that I've talked to some people who disagreed with me in the last couple nights from other states. But our AG's office is saying, put it on the recommendation that goes into the state right off the bat to get the card. And then if there's an issue, you can subpoena the person that runs the registry for the state, who's a Department of Health worker, and she comes in and says, yeah, you know, when Joe Smith filed this 3 years ago, his doctor said 36, 40 plants, whatever it is. So I'm not dealing with a prosecutor later who's saying, oh, you guys are making this crap up, which is what I'm dealing with most of the time. Now, what about other forms of medicine? You know, we have a pretty big out here. Any mixture of preparation there which are appropriate for medical use. You know, so that seems to really open up a lot of stuff, including edibles and other forms. But then, like some of the other states, we get this stuff where they come, they smash, they take, sometimes they charge, sometimes they don't charge. We do have, and it's here and there. You know, I like the concept that we have a return clause in our constitutional amendment. You know, some of the key parts about that have been issues is the claimed medical use of marijuana, and at what point in the police contact the patient relayed to the police officers, hey, this is medical marijuana. Meaning, can they break all this shit before the person says this, and is that okay? Now, it also talks about forfeiture after a plea or a conviction, but then here's the part that makes me groan, and that's that it's the how they decide when to return this stuff is based on the determination that DA or his or her designee that the patient or primary caregiver is entitled to protection of this section. Particularly for your Colorado attorneys, what they do is they come in and they dismiss in the interest of justice. And then when you go to try to get the stuff back later, they say, hey, we never got into that. We just thought in the interest of justice we wanted to dismiss this case. Yes, Bill?
That reminds me of the Williamson thing in California, where you can get diversion if you're cultivating for personal use but not for distribution, because that's a fact finding. Originally the DA made that decision. The court said no, that violates violates separation of powers. Fact finding is the court. So here you've got the DA making a factual determination that really is the court's job. You might be able to challenge that.
And that's true. We'll have to put that in. I think Rob's got a few things going in his hat right now, so we'll have to add that to it. Then we've got these, you know, these unknown questions. Well, actually not really, because these guys figured out a whole bunch of these and took our Attorney General to court. What was it, 6 months ago or now? You know, and figured out that what they were doing is, without any rulemaking procedures, without anything, when dispensaries or caregivers were sending in the card saying, I want to be, you know, a caregiver for this patient, it was getting rejected after 5 patients. Like they just decided, hey, we're not going to sign any more of these things after 5. Now, they were sending the cards back to the patients. They just weren't putting anybody's name in the caregiver block. And yeah, these guys took them to court and it didn't actually go to full trial. They reached an agreement beforehand. So you can have more than 5 patients as a caregiver now in Colorado. Can I have more one-on-one caregivers is a question up in the air. We didn't think it was really up in the air until a recent decision out of Denver, where a judge seemed to indicate there couldn't be a primary and secondary caregiver. But I think, and Rob knows more about that than I do because it was his case, but I think that had a lot also to do with trying to, the timing of proving when the person was acting as a caregiver in relation to the arrest. I keep, you know, saying this over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Because some of the situations we have had is we have had DAs come in and be like, okay, patient, you're way over the limit, you can push me and go with all this medical stuff, but if you do, fuck you, we're gonna dismiss the case, we're gonna walk down the road and refile. And at least in my case, my patient took a plea agreement that my patient did not want to take, but he didn't feel he had many options, and that's what we're looking at. Whether they're really going to do it, I don't know, but this gentleman didn't want to take that risk. That's it for me. You'll see in the end of the information I gave you, I put some of the recent Colorado info in here. We only have, you can go through that and see this is old, it's last January. We only have about 2,000 patients right now in the state. And the state goes so far as to break it down by illnesses, age, all sorts of stuff. It's kind of cool. If you go to our website, you can even see it breaks it down to county, by county and stuff. Thanks, I'll turn this over to Bill.